Hi, I'm Robert Tolby, and today I'm talking about privileged influencers and admissions into elite colleges. I've noticed there's a type of video that has become so popular online that it's now a genre of its own, and that is reading the essay that got me into X prestigious university. While there's nothing wrong with reading your college essay, these videos present the Common App essay as one of the most important reasons why these students got into elite schools. Although the essays are mostly excellent, the quality of some essays in the videos makes you question whether this was really the primary factor in their admission into a prestigious school, because often there's a lot more to the story. Meet Gab, a lifestyle influencer who attended Columbia University until her graduation last year. She made this TikTok video in which she read the Common App essay that, quote, got her into Columbia.
Hey guys, today I'm reading the Common App essay that got me into Columbia. Here we go. Hemingway famously wrote by hand for hours each day. Would he have approved of the literary merits of Twitter as a writing exercise? Maybe. I'll never stop filling notebooks with fiction and poetry, but Twitter offers a thrillingly different way to practice writing concisely and for an audience.
You can watch the rest of the TikTok on her page. My opinion of this essay is not that it was bad, it just didn't leave much of an impression. Let's see what the comments section thought of it. Did you donate a building or something? Either you had amazing stats or else you just benefited from going to a feeder school, because this essay isn't it. While these comments are kind of harsh, they have a point. It's evident that this essay was not the deciding factor in her admission to Columbia. In fact, I'm certain it wasn't. What Gab isn't telling you is that she had a leg up on her fellow applicants, as she attended the Rye Country Day School, a K-12 private school that costs up to $50,000 a year to attend. While only a select few students nationwide attend Ivy League universities, at Gab's high school, over 20% of students in a given graduating class go on to attend Ivy League institutions. That is because the Rye Country Day School is what's called an Ivy feeder. But what are Ivy feeders and how do they work? To learn more about elite private high schools, I talked to my sister, who goes to an Ivy League institution filled with students from schools just like the Rye Country Day School.
Hi, my name is Sabrina Tolfi, and I'm a student at Brown University. I would explain an Ivy feeder as a school that typically it's a private high school that costs a lot of money to attend, that attracts a lot of wealthy students and families, but also has connections to Ivy League schools and other highly ranked institutions. And so essentially it creates a graduating class of students that feeds into these schools. So it has all the resources, but it also has the connections. A lot of students at Ivies and high-ranking institutions do come from these feeder schools, although I don't think they represent a majority of students.
While my sister attended public school, at Brown, 42% of students attended a private or parochial school. In many instances, going to one of these schools greatly increases your chances of attending an elite college. But how? The first reason why so many of these private schools send students to the Ivy League is because they have the resources to provide a world-class education, rigorously preparing a student for an Ivy League course load.
A lot of these rather elite private high schools that have fairly high tuitions, they sort of provide a lot of different resources, like college counselors, for example, but also like the level of classes that they provide. And for example, you'll find ones that have like 20 different AP classes, or like 5 different language options, special arts programs, math courses that go up through like linear algebra, differential equations. You'll find a variety of different specialized classes that allow students to really excel. And while my high school had some AP classes and a lot of help from the guidance department, it definitely wasn't to the extent that like Phillips Exeter, for example, might have.
The Rye Country Day School, for instance, has an insane selection of courses that most public school students could only dream of taking, such as AP Computer Science and AP Chinese. They even have ceramics and sculpture classes. Public schools just cannot keep up with private schools in this area. They often do not have the funding to hire and train teachers to instruct students in these highly specialized subjects when compared to private schools overflowing with cash, which have the ability to hire expert teachers with PhDs. By offering courses that most students can only take in college, the graduates of these elite private high schools come to university prepared to tackle subjects that other students may not be familiar with. Students applying to Ivy League institutions from these private schools might receive preferential treatment because their transcript includes courses that indicate that they are more prepared for college than other students who didn't have the ability to take those courses. Students from elite private high schools also have higher GPAs on average compared to public school students due to grade inflation. Their transcripts can also be improved because they are given more one-on-one support, as these schools often have single-digit student-to-teacher ratios. These factors, among others, make them appear to be better candidates for Ivy League universities. The second reason why a student attending an elite private high school might have a higher chance of getting into an Ivy League institution is that these schools spend a fortune hiring expert college coaches who perfectly craft a student's application such that they have a higher chance of getting accepted. Often these expert coaches worked as admissions officers at prestigious universities. Beyond giving students the ability to craft a perfect application, an opportunity not available to many public school students, many private schools have strong connections with Ivy League institutions. The college coaches and admissions officers sometimes go on retreats, golfing together while chatting about the admissions process. At some elite colleges, private schools outright call universities and advocate for certain candidates in what's called a counselor call, although this practice has fallen out of favor, at least as far as we know. Now, I've talked extensively about private schools, but many public high schools can be just as good or better than private schools. There are many selective charter high schools, which are technically public, but are only accessible to students in extremely wealthy areas that provide the schools with tremendous amounts of funding. It seems the common denominator here is not whether you go to a private or public school. The common denominator is money. The fact is that most people who end up attending Ivy League universities are wealthy, and many are ridiculously wealthy. At Brown University, for example, 19% of students come from families who make $630,000 or more. Not only does this mean that they have the opportunity to receive a top-tier education from an excellent high school, but it also means they have access to expensive private test prep and tutoring programs to help them boost their stats. There are also other ways of getting admitted into an Ivy League school, but those ways are quite illegal and beyond the scope of this video, although that is what the mini Patreon video for All Access patrons and above is about. Finally, we've returned to the Common App essay that students submit to the colleges of their choosing. Before the application deadline approaches, many wealthy students first submit their essay to expert coaches who rework it and tailor it to their needs. These professional college essay editors can charge exorbitant fees for their work and are completely out of reach of students who may need their skills even more than these wealthy students do. Overall, it's safe to say that very wealthy, privileged students presenting their essay, as well as their stats and extracurriculars, as the reasons that got them into their elite university is rather disingenuous. It ignores that their privilege underlies all of those factors. These students present the college admissions process as entirely meritocratic when it is not. The reality is far more complicated. I question what makes these students feel so comfortable attributing their success to their sky-high test scores and practically Shakespearean writing prowess. I'm certain they worked very hard to get where they're at, but I feel like if they had any self-awareness at all, they'd respond very differently to the questions of why they got into their elite schools. I saw this TikTok of a Harvard student who says she's very uncomfortable giving admissions advice because of her privileged background, and her response feels more in line with what I would expect from someone who is cognizant of the effects of their upbringing.
I am not always comfortable giving admissions advice on TikTok. I went to the school that was number 7 on that list, and I also went to Harvard. And if we're being honest, talking about the Ivy League school that you went to gets you a lot of views on TikTok. And it also gets you questions about what you did to get in. What advice do you have? What were the statistics you had? A lot of times people like myself can give that advice without actually giving the full context of the school that they went to and how that gave them resources that the average TikTok user may not have.
Unfortunately, many students like Gab are completely oblivious to the world around them, especially when it comes to the struggles of people who have much less money than they have. And these students, Gab included, can be very blatantly ignorant. For example, when presented with the complex issue of addiction, Gab commented on a creator's post, "Or maybe don't do drugs. I don't know. As insensitive as that comment is, it provides a great look into her worldview, where nothing is a result of structural or systemic causes, and people's successes or failures are entirely determined by their personal choice. So, in her mind, if someone is addicted, they chose that path for themselves. In the same way that if someone gets into an Ivy League school, they simply put in the work to do so. There is, of course, a huge element of survivorship bias in these students' thinking as well. The students in these videos are convinced that they made it into these schools on their own merit, even though there is a large element of luck involved. We only hear about the success stories, but there are plenty of students with similar stats who, because of bad luck, didn't get into a single Ivy League school. Despite this fact, many students who get admitted into these elite colleges feel perfectly comfortable giving admissions advice, and even charging for it, despite the fact that many of them are admittedly not qualified to do so.
I definitely don't think that I am qualified to fully review other people's applications or essays. I know a lot of students do sort of make money by saying, hey, I can edit your essay, I can help you get into these Ivy League schools, I got in, so can you. But I don't think that's really a fair thing to say, especially if you yourself had a lot of help from college coaches, or if, for example, your essay wasn't necessarily what got you in. And so I don't know for sure if my essay helped or hurt my application. I don't know how big of a factor that was. I don't know if it was good compared to other people's essays. And so I think there's no way I can know that I can be really helpful to someone who's applying who has a completely different application, completely different skill set. Like, there's no way I could be an authority on that and charge money for that service.
Although Sabrina feels she is unqualified to give admissions advice or professionally review a common application essay, she's really no more qualified than a large portion of these amateur admissions coaches who have large TikTok followings and give very questionable advice. The fact is, an acceptance letter to a prestigious institution is all the credentials you apparently need to start your own side hustle online, editing common app essays. I personally don't believe a teenager with 1/4 of a bachelor's degree in computer science and a track record of getting exactly one student, namely themselves, into an Ivy League institution, is qualified to tell anyone how to craft their application. But to many young high school students, these TikTokers are gods and seem to hold the keys to the Ivies. While I would advise against following their advice, in many cases, these TikTok coaches are all that most aspiring Ivy League students can afford. The reality is paying $65 to a company run out of a dorm room at Harvard so that a 19-year-old can give you Grammarly level advice about your essay is significantly cheaper than paying someone with years of experience and an advanced degree to perfectly craft your application. I wouldn't call these students who run these operations grifters. In fact, I kind of respect the hustle. I do, however, think that in cases where they themselves received a significant amount of support from their school when applying to college, they aren't being very forthright about their abilities and credentials. From the title of this video, you'd think I'm trying to undermine the hard work of wealthy students who got accepted into prestigious universities. I'm not. The title is kind of clickbait. I know that these students worked really hard, but they should also be self-aware. Hard work is not the only factor in this equation. As for Gab, I think many people would appreciate it if she dialed back the shadiness of the comments she leaves when people tell her to check her privilege, and maybe she should even take some of their criticisms to heart. I know I'm going to get a lot of comments saying, "Who are you to criticize students who worked so much harder than you did?" And to that I say, fair enough. I was an underachieving student in high school, and I certainly don't go to an elite university. But that doesn't undermine my point, that college admissions as they exist now are very unfair, and that the first step to fixing that is recognizing the problem. Anyways, I'm Robert Tolpe, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And to all my all-access patrons and above, don't forget to check out the companion mini video about the 2019 college admissions scandal. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.